Cars were speeding by, honking and swerving around the broken-down luxury SUV in the middle of a busy Lagos road. The sun was already harsh, and the man in a white Igbada was sweating as if trapped inside a fire. His red cap sat loosely on his head, nearly slipping off as he bent under the open hood of his car again, trying something to get the vehicle to respond. He had been trying for almost an hour. People passed him by, some looked, others shook their heads and walked away. No one dared to help. Perhaps it was the intimidating look of the car model or the sharpness of his clothes. No one wanted to get involved. But time was running out. James Jonathan, the billionaire CEO of James Autos, was stuck on the road and about to miss the most important executive meeting of the year. His investors were flying in from Dubai. His phone kept buzzing. "Are you almost here, sir?" But what could he say? The car simply wouldn't start. No signs, no warnings. It had just stopped dead in the middle of the road. Then, out of nowhere, two girls appeared. They looked nothing like mechanics, brown-skinned, thin from hunger, wearing worn-out skirts and faded blouses. Sweat clung to their foreheads, and their long, disheveled natural hair blew gently with the breeze. But their eyes, sharp, focused, and bold, were locked on the engine like it was a puzzle they'd solved before. "Hello, sir," one of them said gently. "What's wrong with your car? We can help you fix it." James blinked. He turned fully and stared at them. "You can what?" he asked, almost laughing. "Do you even know the kind of car this is? Not even all trained mechanics can touch it." "Just trust us," the other girl said. "We can see you've been trying. Please let us try." He looked at them for a moment. They looked no older than 16. What could these girls possibly do? But he had no choice. He stepped back slowly. "All right," he said, his voice filled with doubt. "It won't start when I turn the key. It just went off like that." The girls moved to either side of the engine. The one who spoke first was Ellie. Her twin, Eleliana, had already reached into her blouse and brought out a small, rusty spanner they carried everywhere, just in case. "Start the car, sir," Ellie said. James obeyed. There was a low click, a sputter, then silence. "That's it," Eleliana whispered. "It's an electrical grounding issue. Quick, pass me the cutter." From their tiny side bag, they brought out a few wires, twisted them skillfully, removed a faulty fuse, and after just 3 minutes, they turned to him. "Try it again, sir," Ellie said. James rolled his eyes but turned the key. The car roared back to life. He froze. For 5 whole seconds, he just sat there, stunned. Then he jumped out of the car as if he'd seen a ghost. Wait. What? What did you do?" "It was a minor issue," Eleliana said quietly. "Just a fuse and the grounding point. Many new cars have that glitch." James's mouth hung open. "What? What are your names?" "We're Ellie and Eleliana," they said. He shook his head in disbelief. "I'm James. James Jonathan, CEO of James Autos." The girls stared, stunned. They knew that name. He pulled out a business card and handed it to them. "Call me this evening. I need to speak with you both." "But we don't have a phone," Ellie said honestly. James nodded, then reached into the side compartment of the SUV and brought out a brown envelope. "Take this. It's 500,000 naira. Buy a phone. Use the rest for yourselves. Don't forget to call me." The girls froze, holding the envelope like it was a golden ticket. James started the car and drove off, looking back at them once more in disbelief. The sun had never felt warmer, and the road had never looked so promising. The 500,000 naira cash felt heavy in their hands. Ellie and Eleliana didn't speak for a while. They just stood there, frozen at the edge of the road, watching the billionaire's Mercedes disappear into the Lagos traffic. Cars honked around them, and people shouted, but nothing felt real anymore. Eleliana clutched the brown envelope, afraid it might vanish if she loosened her grip. "Ellie, did we really just help that James Jonathan?" she asked. "I think we did," Ellie replied. They finally turned and began to walk quietly, carefully, as if afraid the world might snatch back what had just happened. The air felt different. For the first time in a long while, they didn't feel invisible. They stopped at a roadside shop and bought a simple Android phone, a SIM card, and a data bundle. They sat under a small mango tree, legs crossed, figuring out how to use it. Neither of them had ever owned a phone before. "Should we call him now?" Eleliana asked. Ellie checked the time. He said evening. "Let's wait." While waiting, they bought food for the first time in days. Jollof rice, chicken with pepper sauce, and cold drinks. The moment they took their first bite, Ellie's eyes watered. "I wish Daddy could see this," she whispered. "I miss him every day," Eleliana said. Their father, Mr. Abina, was a well-known mechanic. His workshop in Ashi had always been filled with cars and laughter. He would let the girls stay with him after school, handing them tools and teaching them how to listen, not just look, at the sound of an engine. "Don't fix with your hands alone," he would always say. "Fix with your heart." Then came that rainy night. Their parents were returning from a family meeting in the village. A trailer skidded, lost control, and their car was crushed. Just like that, everything was gone. The girls had knocked on every door, uncles, aunts, cousins. No one wanted them. Everyone had an excuse. "We don't have space," some said. "We can't take girls," said others. Some just didn't answer at all. They stayed in the same house their father left behind, a tiny one-bedroom that hadn't been touched in months. With no money, no help, and no food, they started doing what they knew, begging to fix cars for petty cash. Most people laughed at them. Some even chased them away. But a few kind drivers allowed them to help, and little by little, they survived. "Maybe today is different," Ellie said, staring at the new phone. When the time hit 6 p.m., she took a deep breath and dialed the number. It rang once, twice, then a voice answered, "Hello." "Hello, sir," Ellie said carefully. "This is Ellie and Eleliana, the twins from this morning." James chuckled on the other end. "Ah, my roadside angels. I've been waiting for your call." The girls smiled at each other. "Can you both come to my office tomorrow morning? 9 a.m. sharp. I want to see you." "We will be there, sir." "Thank you," Ellie replied. He ended the call. The twins stared at each other, eyes wide. "Office?" Eleliana asked. "James Otto's office," Ellie replied. "We're going to see the CEO himself." They didn't sleep that night, not because they were afraid, but because, for the first time in 2 years, they felt hope. But little did they know, tomorrow morning would change everything again. By 7 a.m., Ellie and Eleliana were already up, dressed, and waiting outside a small kiosk near their house. They wore their neatest clothes, old but clean skirts and matching tops their mother had once bought them for church. Their hair was brushed and tied back, and their shoes were worn but polished. They didn't know how far the office was, but they weren't taking any chances. "Ellie, do you think he meant it?" Eleliana asked as they squeezed into a crowded Danfo bus. Ellie held her sister's hand. "I don't know, but we'll never find out if we don't show up." After nearly 2 hours in traffic, they finally arrived at Victoria Island. The minute they stepped out of the bus, the difference in the air hit them. The streets were wide and clean. Glass buildings rose like mountains in every direction. Expensive cars glided past them like kings ignoring the crowd. It felt like another world entirely. Eleliana pointed to a tall building with a silver sign that read, "James Otto's headquarters." "Are you seeing this?" she whispered. "Let's go," Ellie said, gripping her sister's hand. They walked through the glass doors. The security guard looked up from his post and raised an eyebrow. "Good morning," Ellie said, her voice trembling. "We have an appointment with Mr. James Jonathan." The man looked surprised. "You do?" "Yes, sir," she replied. "He asked us to come this morning." He picked up the phone and dialed. "Two girls." "Yes, dressed." "Okay, I see." "Yes, sir." He hung up and stood. "You're expected. Take the elevator to the 10th floor. Someone will meet you there." The twins exchanged shocked glances. "Elevator?" They stepped in and held their breath as the numbers blinked, 3, 4, 5. When the doors opened on the 10th floor, a tall woman in a black skirt suit greeted them. "Ellie and Eleliana, correct?" "Yes, ma'am," they said in unison. "Follow me." She led them into a wide, glass-walled conference room with a stunning view of the ocean and Lagos traffic below. Seated at the far end of the long table was James Jonathan. This time, he wasn't sweating or stranded. He was in full control, dressed in a fitted navy blue suit, sipping from a glass of water. "Welcome," he said with a smile. The twins stood silently. "Sit down, please." They sat at the far edge, stiff and unsure. "I couldn't stop thinking about you too," James said. "You saved my day. But what shook me the most wasn't the car you fixed in minutes. It was your boldness, your confidence. I haven't seen that kind of courage in a long time." He leaned forward. "Tell me your story." "Everything." And so they did. They told him about their father, the man who taught them how to hold a spanner before they could hold a pencil. They spoke of the accident, the rejection, the struggle. They didn't cry, they'd cried too many tears already, but their voices cracked. James listened without interrupting, not once. By the time they finished, he had taken off his glasses. His eyes were misty. He stood. "I don't say this lightly," he said. "But your story moved me. I want to help you, not just today, but for good." The twins looked up in shock. "I will be your guardian from now on," James said, placing his palm over his chest. "You're no longer alone." He turned to his assistant. "Get them a full scholarship application for our partner school. Prepare everything they need, books, uniforms, transport. I want them enrolled by Monday." The assistant nodded. The twins were speechless. "You're going back to school," James said. "And when the time comes, you'll take the university exam and study mechanical engineering. The world needs more girls like you." Eleliana burst into tears. James walked around the table and pulled them into a hug. "You're not orphans anymore. You're my daughters now." The room was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the quiet sobs of two girls whose lives had just changed forever. But outside the office, someone was watching them from a parked car, someone who didn't want their joy to last. The next few weeks felt like a dream Ellie and Eleliana never wanted to wake up from. They were moved into a guest house in Lekki, beautiful, quiet, with running water, soft beds, and a kitchen filled with food. For the first time in years, they had toothbrushes of their own. The uniforms for their new school arrived, pressed and folded. Every morning, a driver picked them up and dropped them off like VIPs. Ellie clutched her notebook close every day in class. Eleliana made friends with the librarian. Their names started to buzz around school. "Those are the billionaire's daughters," some whispered. But the twins didn't care about fame. They only wanted to make James proud. And every evening, they still played with car parts in the backyard, just to keep their skills alive. But behind all the joy, something strange began to happen. One evening, as they walked out of the school gate, Ellie paused. A black car was parked across the street. Its windows were tinted, but she was sure someone was watching. "Do you see that?" she whispered. Eleliana turned. That car was there this morning. The moment they looked at it directly, the engine started, and the car slowly drove away. Maybe it's just a parent, Ellie said, but her voice didn't sound convinced. They told James that night. He immediately grew tense. Did you get the plate number? No, they both said. James called his security team and gave instructions. From now on, they don't go anywhere without a guard. I want to know who's following them. Days passed, then a week. No sign of the black car again. The girls focused on school. Their grades soared. James smiled more often. The fear slowly faded until the night of the scholarship dinner. James Autos was awarding 5 full scholarships to young students in engineering. It was a big event, with reporters, cameras, music, and dignitaries everywhere. Ellie and Leliana were special guests, seated beside James in beautiful gowns. Ellie gave a short speech that left the room in tears. When we had nothing, she said, we still had tools because our father taught us how to fix cars. But more importantly, he taught us how to fix ourselves. The applause shook the hall, but just as the crowd settled, a security officer leaned in and whispered to James, "Sir, we caught someone trying to sneak into the building." James stood immediately. "Where?" he asked. "In the back lot," the officer replied. He said he was their uncle. James's jaw tightened. He turned to the girls. "Do you know a man named Alma?" Their faces went pale. "He's our father's cousin," Ellie said softly. "After our parents died, he said he couldn't take care of girls. He threw us out." James nodded. "That same man tried to claim you tonight." "What?" Leliana stood. "Claim us for what?" "He said he was your only living relative, that you belonged to him, and that I had no right to take care of you." James's face darkened. "He's lying. He wants money," Ellie said. "I know," James replied. "He won't get a kobo." James turned to his head of security. "Press charges if he comes close again." The moment felt like a storm passing, but it left cracks in the sky. Leliana leaned into Ellie. "Why do people only remember us when good things happen?" "Because now we matter to them," Ellie replied. "Before, we were just problems." James returned to the table and looked at them with a tired smile. "You girls are not problems. You're my miracle." But that wasn't the last they'd hear of Uncle Alma. A few nights later, James received a call. "Sir, someone broke into the Lecky guest house. The girls are safe, they weren't home, but the place was ransacked." James's eyes burned with quiet fury. "No more warnings," he said. "Find him. Whoever's behind this, we finish it now." But as the girls walked into James Auto's headquarters the next morning, they had no idea what was waiting for them inside or how their lives were about to change again forever. The morning sun over Victoria Island was golden and calm, but Ellie and Leliana's hearts pounded as the company's glass doors slid open. Their usual smiles were gone. After the break-in at the guest house, everything felt different, like the shadows were growing longer. Security greeted them warmly, but they could sense a new tension in the air. More guards were stationed at the elevators. The receptionist whispered rapidly into her earpiece. Something was wrong. Just as the elevator doors closed behind them, James's assistant, Mrs. Kem, rushed toward them. "Girls," she said, breathless, "Sir James needs to see you in the executive boardroom now." They followed her silently, their heartbeats louder than their shoes on the polished marble floor. When they entered, James stood alone in the wide room. Behind him, on a large screen, was a paused video. His face was unusually stern. "Come in," he said, motioning toward the chairs. They sat. James pressed play. The footage was from the guest house, showing someone forcing the back door open, entering with 2 others, ripping through drawers, tearing open clothes, and flipping mattresses, looking for something. Then the man turned, and there was no mistake. Uncle Alma, Eleliana whispered, shaking. James paused the video. He wasn't just after money, he said slowly. He was looking for documents. Documents? Ellie asked. James walked to his desk and brought out a sealed brown file. Your father, Mr. Abina, had been working with me. We were in talks to open a special joint venture called Abina Auto Tech Institute, a school to train young mechanics, especially girls, across Nigeria. Your father left behind blueprints, proposals, and signed agreements. I kept them safe after his death, but I never knew he had hidden one final letter. I found it just this morning. James slid the letter across the table. Ellie picked it up with trembling fingers and read aloud, "If anything ever happens to me and my wife, please look after my girls. They are everything, and they are meant for greatness. Let them carry the name we started together. George Abina." Silence filled the room. Tears rolled down Eleliana's cheeks. Ellie couldn't speak. James leaned forward. Your father didn't just leave you with skills, he left you with a mission. And I believe it's time to fulfill it. He stood and handed them each a printed letter. You've both been admitted into the University of Lagos Mechanical Engineering Department. Full scholarship, everything paid. You start next semester. They gasped. But there's more, James added. He turned to his assistant. Please bring in the paperwork. Mrs. Kem returned with a legal team and a framed document. James held it up. This is an adoption certificate. I want to be your legal guardian. Your father asked me to, and I'd be honored to call you my daughters. Not just in love, but by law. Ellie and Eleliana rushed into his arms, weeping. Yes. Yes. From that day on, the girls moved in with James permanently. They returned to school with fire in their hearts. They studied like their lives depended on it and graduated top of their class. On the day of their convocation, international companies sent offers, but instead, they returned to James Autos, now renamed James and Daughters. With their engineering skills and James's empire, they built the first all-female mechanical engineering innovation lab in Nigeria. Years later, Ellie and Eleliana stood before a crowd of journalists and students as they unveiled the first prototype of a solar-powered car engine made entirely in Africa. The crowd went wild, but in the front row, James sat with tears in his eyes, whispering to himself, they were never homeless. They were just waiting to find their home. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? If you enjoy this story, please comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.